We're going to make baked cherry tomato risotto. This is really straightforward. So we've got 25 grams of butter, an onion chopped up finely. We have garlic, 3 cloves or the equivalent. So that could be, I'm using frozen this morning. However, you could use dried garlic, garlic puree, whatever you like. 700 mils of stock, hot stock, so you've warmed that up. I'm using a vegetable stock cube with 700 mils of boiling water. But if you have your own homemade stock, just warm it up. 300 grams of risotto rice, I've given that a rinse. 1 400 gram tin of whole cherry tomatoes, these can be found in any supermarket. I've got salt and pepper. 50 grams of parmesan. You can get parmesan equivalent like this, which is a bit cheaper. You can get it in a plastic tub of dried parmesan, which again is a bit cheaper. Or you can buy a block of parmesan and grate it yourself. So 50 grams of that, and then some basil leaves for garnishing. You can omit them if you want, or you could towards the end throw in a wee bit of dried basil. It will still give you that wee extra flavour, but maybe not just quite so pretty looking. Okay, as always, this is not in real time. I've put my butter in and I've started to melt that, and I've put my onions and my garlic in, and then you just gently cook that through. Don't cook it through too hot, you don't want it to caramelise. If you have a pot that can go from stove to oven, then perfect. If you don't, then you would just cook this up in an ordinary pot and transfer it into your casserole dish, okay? And we'll cook that through. Okay, remember to pause the video because this is not in real time. My onions and my garlic are softened up now, and I'm going to add my rice so that it gets that lovely buttery taste into it. So we just give that a little bit of a fry. Not for very long, just for a minute or two, just so that it gets covered in any of the butter that's there. Once you've added your rice and given it a good mix, you're then going to add your stock and some salt and pepper. And your tomatoes. Make sure you get all that good tomato taste into the tin. You can do this with fresh tomatoes. If you have fresh cherry tomatoes, you can use them. Okay, stir that through nicely and put on a tightly fitting lid and pop it into your oven at gas mark 6 or 200. You cook it in the oven for about 20 minutes, give or take, depending on how quickly your oven cooks. If your oven isn't warm, you'll need to cook it a bit longer. If your oven is preheated, then probably 20 minutes would be enough. That took my oven about 30 minutes to cook. My oven cooks quite slowly, so while it's still quite moist and still quite a bit of water in it, you can see that rice is nicely cooked there, but still with maybe a little bit of a bite. We're going to add about 2/3 of this parmesan and give it a mix in, and then you'll pop the lid back on and leave it to sit for 4 minutes or 5 minutes, and then it'll be ready to serve and garnish with your basil leaves. You can buy a basil plant from a supermarket for about 60-70 pence. You can grow it in your garden for much less. In fact, we have a basil leaf pack that we can give you for growing, or you can just use frozen chopped basil, or as I said earlier, if you want, you can put dried basil in a bit earlier in the process so that it gets a chance for the flavour to flood out. Enjoy your risotto. You can actually make this in this cost of living difficult time. You could actually make this without using the oven, because that can be quite expensive. You could make this in your slow cooker, or you could just continue cooking it on the stovetop. You would need to keep an eye on it a bit more if you're doing it on the stovetop, to make sure that you don't burn it and it doesn't stick to the bottom. Enjoy.